I do want to talk about kind of hiring this young talent, which, as we said, needs more confidence and needs a lot of mentoring, but can still be brilliant. In terms of like hiring it, we need to know what great looks like. And you said to me before that it's about the 4 H's. Success in sales is the 4 H's. I'm loving the acronyms today, Mark. Fuck it, I'm going to go for it. What are the 4 H's?
The 4 H's is something that I came up with that really is about saying the intangibles matter more than the tangibles. So first H, hunger. You need to want it more than anyone else. If you don't have that burning desire to succeed, that deep need to win, that insatiable yearning to compete, you probably won't win or compete or succeed. Hunger is an incredible motivator to get you through the inevitable challenges. Hustle. It's not enough to just be hungrier than everyone else. You need to be prepared to outwork them too. There's a great quote from John McMahon, who was a tremendous sales leader, and it sums it up well. The difference between winners and losers is that losers practice until they get it right. Winners practice until they never get it wrong. Such an incredible quote from absolute sales genius, and also applies to sports. I always think about Tom Brady when I hear that. Someone who was not the most gifted athlete of all time, but certainly the greatest professional athlete of all time, because he outworked everyone else. Watched more film than everyone, was in the gym earlier than everyone. No one would outwork him. And so he was able to rise when it mattered the most. Third H, humility. This is one that I will grant you a lot of salespeople don't have. They come in with bravado, but I actually think humility is the approach. You need to know that no matter how much success you've achieved, there's always someone who's done more. And there are always areas you can improve. None of us are perfect, certainly not me. You need to recognize and embrace that. You need to use that to fuel your growth. The last H is heart. It should be table stakes, but instead it's more like special sauce. Think of it like grit, what it takes to be a champion, to be able to take a punch and keep fighting. There's a great book by Reed Hastings called No Rules Rules, where he talks about talent density. I actually think as important or potentially more important than talent density is grit density, to have a team that just has a massive amount of grit.
You mentioned there about hustle and the ability and desire to work harder than anyone else and put the hours in. You said before to me you need to think outside the horse when it comes to hiring sales teams. Think outside the horse. I kind of repeated this to myself and it didn't become clear to me. So can you help me out here? What did you mean by this? And how does that impact how you think about what you look for in the people you add to your sales teams?
Yeah, I love this. It's a little bit of a mixed metaphor, but let me tell you. So from a product standpoint at Ramp, we think of the legacy state as a horse and buggy. And do we want to build a faster horse and buggy, or are we going to build an automobile? On a slightly different vein, I've heard guests of yours talk about the expression in sales recruiting that fast horses run together, right? A players attract to A players. But if you want 10x productivity, you need to think outside the horse. You need a race car, not a race horse. Let me give you an example here. If you have a 10x better product, and I hope you're investing in companies with 10x better products because they're amazing. But if you have a 10x better product and a good traditional sales rep, the best you can achieve is a 10x outcome. It's a pretty good outcome. Mm-hmm. But if you have a 10x better product and a 10x better sales rep, you can achieve a 100x outcome. And the best salespeople, in my experience, rarely fit the mold of what great salespeople should look like. And I'm not even talking about myself and my challenge getting into Silicon Valley. The best salespeople I've seen in the last several companies I've been in, none of them would be hired today based on the rubric that sales leaders have. You need to think outside the horse.
Why? What were they? What did they have? What did they not have that made them not fit in the rubric? What made them that way?
So, for one thing, they didn't come from the right companies, or they didn't have the right LinkedIn profile, or something about them would have canceled them out from even getting into the funnel from a hiring standpoint. But the best salespeople will have those 4 H's, but they're also going to have creativity. Can you take duct tape, chewing gum, and a Zoom link and MacGyver a 7-figure closed-won deal, right? Like, that takes creativity. I've seen people do it. It's extraordinary. Not everyone has that. Are they adaptable? The two first salespeople at Ramp, the first one now leads half the sales and SDR teams. The second one is chief of staff to our CEO. Right? They're adaptable. You're hiring people not for what they can do today, but people who have enormous growth potential. That's how you get a 10x outcome.
Okay, so I love that in terms of the focus on 10x and thinking outside the horse. But how do we determine whether they're 10x? If we go to the interview process, say we've let them into the interview process despite not being the traditional fit, but they're in, we're sitting down with them. What questions do we ask? How do we know if they're 10x's?
Yeah, you need to get really intimate. You need to go deep in your interview questions. Get at the why, not just the what. So many interview questions are, what did you do next? Why, what were you doing at that company? What deals did you close? I want to know the why. I want to know the how. I want to know I want to know them and get really deep to understand what makes them tick. What was the reasoning behind decisions they made, not just the performance? And a great way to test this is with a challenge. So I know different organizations think about this differently. I want them to sell to me, not what they're selling today, but I want them to sell my solution back to me because it shows if they can do research. It shows if they can synthesize that information. I know if what they're saying is correct or not. I can see all of the gears turning, and I can test them as well in that setting and say, hey, I'm a CFO. We scheduled this for 45 minutes. I actually only have 10. Go. Are you adaptable? Right? Can you take a punch? Can you pivot really quickly?
God, that's harsh, Mark.
It happens in real life, though. I much rather it happen in an interview than with a real prospect.
I've had many sales leaders on the show say before, I like them to sell a product that they've sold before and they know, because if they sell mine back to me, there's this massive asymmetric knowledge, one, and
Sure.
then two, like if you have any form of hiring committee who are involved, they'll naturally kind of respectfully, intellectually look down on them because they just know way more given your experience compared to theirs. How do you think about that? Pitch yours product versus pitch something they know much better?
I don't want you to be comfortable in that interview process selling me something that you could talk about with, your eyes closed while you're sleeping. I want you to have to think. I want to challenge you. It's called a challenge for a reason. I want to see if you can rise to that occasion. Enterprise sales is hard. I want to see if you have what it takes to rise up and be able to perform in that setting.
Would you rather a rep that you're hiring has experience selling at that level of ACV or has experience selling to that segment of market in terms of finance tools?
For me, I think it's about selling enterprise deals, so that value, selling to organizations that size, because the scale is so different. I've seen mid-market account executives get promoted into enterprise in my past and flame out pretty quickly. And the reason is usually they're used to a certain level of multi-threading. Hey, I need 3 or 4 people in the deal. Well, now all of a sudden everything is magnified by an order of magnitude. Can you play 20 simultaneous games of chess? It's great that you can play chess, but can you play 20 games at the same time? It's much harder.
To what extent do you handhold younger reps in these large deal cycles? Because you can't just let them run free. To what extent do you do the kind of mentor-mentee going to war together?
So you need to create space for them to fail when the stakes are low so they can succeed when the stakes are high. You have to be in the boat with them, right? First of all, as a sales leader, I've got a quota, and my quota is a roll-up of my reps. So number one, I'm in the boat with you because your performance is going to matter for my performance. Putting that aside, I want to see everyone on my team succeed, but I can't do the job for them, right? I can't be in every deal, in every place, and every call at the same time. No matter how much Gong gives me visibility into all of it, I can't do it. So I need to give you the tools to succeed when I'm not there. And I need to be in the boat with you and teach you and mentor you throughout that process. But what I've also found, and I helped build enablement in my former company as well, what I found is No matter how much you say the stove is hot, people still want to touch it in order to find out that it's really hot. And so it's my job to make sure the burner's on simmer and not on high, so it's not a catastrophic wound.
I love that. They'll always want to touch it, my friend. Don't worry.
They do. They don't believe you.
Can I ask, should we, if we're a startup hiring, what does that process look like? Is it like first interview, get to know you, the why, second, a case study, third, what does that process look like step by step, do you think?
So for me, I want to be able to qualify quickly. Is this person of the right caliber? Have they closed the right level of deals? Do they have the right experience? Do they have the right gravitas to be able to hold themselves in an executive meeting? That, is usually like a 30-minute sort of getting to know you call. Assuming that goes well, you want to go deeper. You want to spend an hour with them. You want to really go deep. You want to ask those why questions, those how questions, really get to understand what makes them tick. You want to have other stakeholders meet with them as well. Typically in enterprise, you're a quarterback. You're working with other people internally and externally. So how do those relationships form? Are you able to play off those dynamics? And then ultimately, you want to do a challenge with a panel of interviewees all the way up to your C-suite leadership.
I think we all learn a lot from making mistakes. I know I've made many in my time.
Me too.
What are the biggest mistakes you've made in terms of hiring for enterprise sales teams? And how did that change how you think?
I've certainly made mistakes. I think sometimes when you assume their experience, if you assume their fit based on where they've been or what they've accomplished in their career, you put yourself in a very risky situation where when they come in, if you haven't tested for that, they may fail. I've seen people who are extremely accomplished join organizations I've been a part of, and within 6 months, they're no longer in the company because they weren't able to cut it. The fit was wrong. And so you really need to test for that, because the last thing you want is to waste 6 months of their career, of their time, and 6 months of your runway and 6 months of your time on someone who isn't a fit.